Hi, today this following tutorial I will explain how to create a basic transition and animation process. Okay, I already created some, so I will explain a bit how it was created. I will show you what's the process. It's very simple in Vue to add transitions and animations, and that way you can add your own transitions and animations. So I personally created a menu component, and inside the menu component I added some animations. Okay, so let's first I will first uncomment the menu component. Now if I show it here, it will show this, what you just seen right now, because the menu component, if we go into it and into the HTML section, you will see I added the following things. There is a button, okay, called toggle render, because I'm using an example from the internet. There is the title of the menu. I added the login register component, so you can see that you can put the login register component anywhere you want. The idea of component-based development is that you can recycle the components in many different places. So specifically in my case, I am doing it in the menu component. So eventually the result is the menu component, the button, and because I'm logged and there is the session, it will show the button right now. But I will log out. Okay, I'm gonna keep myself logged out. If I refresh, again, it will show this right now. And because if you will remember, if you've seen the previous tutorial, that's the reason why it's showing. That's one of the good things about component development. Because I made changes on the component login, it will automatically update all the other places the component is used, and specifically in the menu. So now if I log in, it will keep the log out option, and so on and so on. Okay, so let's see first a simple transition and an animation, and I will show you the difference between them. Okay, the advantages that Vue offers us is mainly the simplicity of adding animation processes to visual components. Okay, the idea is simple. What we want to allow users is to execute a certain transition at their already developed component inside a certain defined transition. Specifically, this transition, as you can see here, with the name slide fade, was defined in the CSS, yes, of the component. Okay, and I will go into the details of the CS of the definition of the transition. But what I want you to keep in mind is that anything that you add inside this section of the transition section, inside this body, the animation will be applied upon. And the most important thing is this property here. Okay, now remember that in the login, when we create the login component, we added a boolean that controls if it should show this section or not. If this is true, it will show this inside this. And if this is false, it will hide this. So automatically, what Vue does here, it detects when this variable here changes value. So if it detects that I want to show the login register and it sees that it's inside the transition process, it will execute the transition itself. If it's outside the transition, it won't execute anything. But what I want you to see that the thing that triggers the animation, it will be always a change in the state of visibility. In this case, here. So the transition itself, called slide fade, the properties of the transition, we always define it in the CSS. In this specific case, the slide fade enter active and the slide fade leave active define the behavior of the element once it enters, when it gets shown. Once you bring it from hidden to visible, it will execute in all regards during 3 seconds the animation that we will define down here, okay, in an ease way. This is a way of telling him that it has to be executed easily. And then we also define the leave behavior. Once it gets hidden, it will execute in all regards in 8.8 seconds, not 3 seconds, in 0.8, it will be faster, in a cubic algorithmic manner. Okay? So, this is to define the behavior. Now, the final part of the transition, we have to define what exactly we wanted to happen there. And when we see this, okay, what we're doing right now is defining, yes, the final state of the visual element. Okay, the view will automatically calculate, find the necessary calculations to make it feel like an animation. But it's obvious, for example, that if we are telling it that the final state will be minus 500 pixels, that we're telling him to move out of the screen to the position minus 500, what we will do is execute the animation in an ease speed during 3 seconds. In this case, in this option, it will be an entry, right? But if we leave, it will execute the movement to minus 500 pixels in 0.8 seconds. Okay? It will probably move the visual element at a rate of 110 or 120 pixels per millisecond. Okay? So that's the idea here. The same thing with opacity. Again, we are telling him what is the final state we want it to be at. So it will automatically create a symmetrical relation. When it leaves, it will go to minus 500. When it enters, it will go back to the original state, going completely reversed process as this one here. So if we try this, go here, and we press this button, which changes the state of the show boolean, it will take it out. And when we press back, it will bring it back, both moving it and changing the state of the opacity, as we mentioned here. Okay. The leave 2, as you can see, defines that the object, the final state we want it to go to is this one here. And that's what we have to do. We don't have to define each state of the animation. We just have to define the final state, and he will automatically take us there. Okay? That's the advantages of the transitions. The same as here. And when we enter, yeah, it will bring us back symmetrically to the original state. Okay? Great. Finally, we will look into the animation process. The animation process is a bit harder. It's a bit more complex because it allows us to add more states than the one that it adds in the transition. The transition is completely from origin to destiny. There is no intermediate possibilities of states. But here, we can add different states. Okay. First, as always, we define both the enter time animation. It will take 5 seconds to enter and 5 seconds to exit in a reverse process. It's important to define the reverse, because that way we tell him that you have to do exactly the same thing, but the other way around, but inverse to the enter process. Then in the keyframes bounce in, which is practically, remember, this is the reverse, we'll do precisely the opposite of what we define in the bounce in. We will define different moments in the animation that will affect visually the elements in there. So at the beginning, when it starts, it will be at the scale of 0. It will disappear. Then it will go to scale 5, will get bigger, then smaller, then bigger again, and then finally to the original size. And this is when it goes into, when it enters the view. When it exits, it will execute it completely reverse. It will first put it at the size 1, then, which is the original size, then it will duplicate its size, smaller a bit, bigger, and then completely 0. So this is the animation option, which is the other option here beside transitions. And if we want it to work, we have to move our component from here to here. Remember that the on click, we're not really calling an function. We immediately telling him that the show should turn around, turn it to false or to true, depends on what's the original value. So if I go back to the HTML, I execute this, let's refresh. Now if I press here, it will go first big, small, big, again to 5, and then 0, and disappear. And the other way around will be like this. Again, big, smaller, bigger a bit, and then to 1. The scale size to 1. And it's working. And that's it. That's the idea here. More animation process, it really depends on what you want to add. But the basics are here. Both in the transition, you define the destiny state. You just put the objective, the final state, so it will calculate by himself what is the process you need to fulfill. And in this case, we can add our own sub states. That's it. See you next time.